All right, guys. Today we are going to be reacting to Andrew Wilson versus Marxist Feminist debate. Should women go to war? This is one of my favorite topics, guys. Let's jump in.
Well, for why it is that if men are fighting the wars, they're necessarily in a position of privilege where they can make the determination.
I mean, I don't like women can fight against alongside men. I don't think this is.
They can't. They literally cannot fight alongside men.
They have, like in the Civil War, women were sneaking in.
Oh,
to
man,
the
come
military.
on.
Women
Yes,
were not
they
fighting.
were.
Would you like to get a death count on how many women died in combat in the Civil War versus men?
Well, they weren't allowed to enlist in the Civil War.
They're allowed right now.
So they snuck in.
They're allowed right now.
They fought on next to their husbands.
Would
and
you like a
and
list?
Yo, this is a stupid argument. It's like saying that Puerto Ricans were part of the Civil War because there were only 2 Puerto Ricans. This is stupid. You know what? There was only 2 Puerto Ricans fighting in the American Civil War. One in the Confederacy and the other one in part of the Union. That doesn't mean Puerto Ricans, contribute to the Civil War's outcome. This is stupid, man. This is literally stupid.
As to how many women right now are in the combat infantry capable of going to the front
Crazy,
lines
man.
in comparison to men. Do you want to know how many that is?
Sure.
Okay, well, let's start with this. Special Forces. How many female Navy SEALs do you think there are?
None.
How many?
None.
Oh,
That's
okay.
really weird. Are they barred from being Navy SEAls?
No.
Oh, and they are trying to become Navy SEAls.
I think there have been women who.
A lot of them.
how many Navy SEAls are there?
I don't know, but how many?
Well,
let's say
I
there's.
think it's important delineation to make too, because I'm sure you would argue a majority of men don't meet that requirement.
Sure.
Well, they
So
could.
how many men are meeting that requirement? Again, it's saying
but all the ones who are men.
Again, it's saying the fence is 6 feet tall. You have to be able to see over the fence, and
So you
that.
want them to lower the standard of physical strength for Navy SEAls?
Well, again, like if we're talking about the certain systems that are in place, I don't think there are countries that exist without Navy SEAls. There are countries that exist without.
What country exists without special forces? There's no country that exists without special forces, not one.
Not to the degree that we have here. I mean,
Yes, they are. They are. Even European countries. From west to eastern. I mean, North, South European countries, they have special forces. Even Africans, they have special forces. What are you talking about, lady?
are you saying all countries have a Navy, a military, and an Air Force?
There's no country I'm aware of that doesn't have a military. None.
Well, again, I delineated between Air Force.
That's just branches
Navy.
of military.
Right.
Yeah, so what? No, I think if you live in the middle of the desert, you don't have a Navy.
But obviously.
Yeah, if you live in the desert, you don't have a Navy.
Sure.
But then you still have a military. That's the
Sure.
point.
But again, to what degree do you
Wow, man. this is
how
crazy.
large does this need to be? I don't think it necessarily needs to be
these
always
semantics are
a
insane.
necessary condition of a society.
Yeah,
These-
it does need to be a necessary condition of a society, because you have to have force in order to run a society.
Yeah,
You have to.
you have
There's
to.
no way around it. But back to this, you kind of obfuscated, almost got away with it. But how many females Navy SEAls
she's laughing because it's true. She was obfuscating.
are there? There's 0. They're not barred from doing it.
Right.
So what's the barrier for them?
I mean, obviously, physical
Yeah,
capacity.
they can't meet the physical capacity.
Right.
And so the
And
thing
you
is,
would
hang
say
on,
that too.
we can break this
Sure.
down going beyond that, beyond the Navy SEALs. You just start with the special forces. Let's move over into other types of special forces. How many female Green Berets?
Oh, I have no idea.
How many do you think?
I don't know.
Okay, well, Green Beret Special Forces, I don't think there's any of those either.
Okay.
Okay. But if you get into combat infantry, right? Women who are capable of being in combat in the infantry, would you say that that is on par with men or less than?
Probably less than.
Significantly less?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think women are steered towards armed forces.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Let's pretend for a second that you were a general. And you should be able to think like a general, right? Because women aren't incapable of that or anything. So the enemy, right? The enemy really likes to grape women.
They love it.
That they really like that.
They love
right?
it.
And you have men and women who can fight in the front lines, right? So you draft men and you draft women. Do you think that the enemy would try to demoralize you by raping your women?
Yes.
Yeah.
And why would
it work?
It would work.
Demoralize women?
No, to demoralize men and women. Wouldn't it demoralize the men if the enemy was raping female soldiers and they could like hear them?
I think that would demoralize anyone, sure.
Yeah, but it would really demoralize the men, right?
Yo, she
What-
cannot.
what's-
She
Because they can't
cannot.
do anything to
It's
stop it.
incredible. She cannot concede a point. She's incapable to concede a point just to practice sign language, just to do sign language. She cannot concede a point, guys.
Okay.
And they want to stop it, right?
I would think anyone would want to stop rape.
Yeah, sure. But when you're talking about your fighting force, right? Do you think that the enemy is going to grape the men?
I mean, if there's no women, sure.
They don't.
They don't.
That's what
Yeah.
happens in prison.
Yeah, sure.
Oh.
It happens in prison.
Yeah, we went from war to prison. Okay.
Not usually in infantry combat.
Well, I mean, because there's no, like, we're just giving an example, like, when there's no women, men grape men.
Yeah, but that's, first of all, that does happen in prison. It's not common. But let me ask you this. Would it be more common in
I think it's pretty
prisons? Would it be more common in prison for there to be rape if they were co-ed?
I mean, grape happens a lot in prison, being sex segregated.
Yeah. Would it happen more if it wasn't sex segregated? Like if there was a lot of women around very violent inmates, do you think that they would get raped? There would be more grape or less grape?
I think the women, yeah, they would grape
Yeah,
women.
There would be a lot more grape, right? I mean, there's opportunity. They're smaller, easier to do.
Sure.
Yeah,
But
that same
I
thing's
don't
going to
think
happen in combat.
Grape is necessarily like just an act of physical.
Andrew. Shout out to Andrew. You guys notice what he did? He just went with it. But he brought the argument back to the biology. Man and female. If they were both in the same place, what would happen? Men will probably grape the females. Not shout out, Andrew. Andrew's so good, man.
Strength.
Yeah, maybe not. There needs to be motivation. Like, I'm commanding you to grape the enemy because it demoralizes them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't you think that that takes away from the effectiveness of women in combat in general?
I mean, not necessarily.
Full of it, this
What?
lady.
So you're saying because women are present, and there's an opportunity for the
No, in combat, they're present.
right, women are present.
You agree
in
that people get
combat.
captured in combat all the time?
Right. So let's just. I'm sorry. Let me just understand this hypothetical here. So there's hypothetical one.
She's trying very hard, guys, not to give the W to Andrew. That's why she's obfuscating, moving the goalposts, because she's trying to get out of this topic.
Where the entire infantry is men,
Yeah.
and there's hypothetical two where
it's mixed.
It's mixed. And what's there are different outcomes.
Yes. Very different outcomes.
Why are the ones with men having a different?
Because they're not getting graped by the enemy. They're getting captured by the enemy, but they're
Well,
not
wouldn't
getting
that
graped.
be demoralizing?
Not as demoralizing as sending your own soldiers back pregnant with the enemy's enemy or enemy's baby inside of their womb. That seems way more demoralizing to me.
Okay.
Doesn't that seem
They hate their own kind. This is insane, man. The feminists really hate their own kind, man. This is crazy. They really want to hold power with that, guys. They really want. They understand their womb. Their womb tend to be very valuable, so they really want to. This is why Europe and the Western world is. Man, if you have a wife, guys, make sure you have a lot of kids. Make sure you have a lot of kids. Make sure you have a good woman. And teach them Western values. Because this is not what she's doing. Her mission is to destroy the Western world, guys. The sense of patriarchy in the Western world. That's why they're not patriotics. Patriotism, patri, father. It comes from the Latin word patri, right? Father.
way more demoralizing to you?
I mean, definitely.
For one thing,
more
finding
horrific,
soldiers
yeah.
who would just like have gay sodomizing sex with men would not be easy to do. But finding soldiers who would be willing to grape the enemy's women doesn't
Mm-hmm.
seem like that would be very difficult to find.
Okay,
Would you agree with that?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So-
Again, short is not a. It's not. When they say short, it's not. It's a false positive. I call it a false positive because short means that I'm just giving you the false pretense that I'm agreeing with what you're saying, but I'm not. It's not a definitive statement or an answer.
So yeah, it would be very demoralizing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's probably not a good idea to have women on the front line combat because of that reason, right?
I mean, I guess that's just kind of assuming that that is like essentially what's always going to happen.
Do you think that our enemies are not going to rape our women?
I guess it would depend. I mean, if we're talking on front lines, like hand-to-hand combat,
Even
They haven't seen women. They're fighting a war. They haven't seen women in like 2 years. What do you think they're going to do when they capture
that happens
enemy
with
women?
civilians.
Yeah. What does? That they haven't seen women in 2 years?
No, that then they rape civilians as well.
Sure.
Yeah, she doesn't want to meet
I
the
agree.
obvious. This
Yeah.
is
Why
crazy.
you-
She does not want to meet the obvious. We know the answer on this, guys.
Usually when armies pull back, they pull their civilian population back with them. Mm-hmm. So what? Because they don't want to get their female population raped by the enemy.
Okay.
That's why they do that.
Okay. So yes, I do recognize that obviously there's going to be a different outcome in war for women than there is for men
They're going to
because
get
of
raped.
gender.
Yeah,
Sure.
they're going to get raped, and then they're going to get pregnant.
That
That's
can
going to
be-
be really
I mean-
demoralizing.
Yeah, let's
Right?
go, Andrew. Let's
I
go.
don't disagree.
Yeah, there we go. Let's go, Andrew. Let's go, Andrew. You have to put it as raw as possible. That way the emotion kicks in. That nice job. This is what a good salesman does too, right? They put that it's like selling life insurance. What would happen if something happens to you? Would your wife have the money to pay 5 years of your current income? You have to put these kind of things in perspective. That way they understand that their craziness has consequences.
But I don't know if that's like a
Well, I'll just ask you this. You're in charge of your nation's security, and the enemy is brutal, and they're horrible, and you need to win this war by any means necessary. Would you order your men to rape the enemy's women?
no.
Even if you needed to win? What if they were going to rape your women? And you needed to demoralize them? Would you do it?
No.
See, you're not even equipped to make these decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even
Exactly.
equipped to make these decisions.
To justify grape? No.
Yeah, you're not built for it. When Andrew was telling me that, when Andrew was saying that, not telling me that, but when Andrew was putting that example, I already knew like we need to do what we need to do. We need to do what we need to do. I'm not in favor of that. But when it comes down to conflict, it is yours or ours kind of situation. So you have to buckle up. You have to lock in. You have to lock in.
So, just to make sure
Got it
that I
straight
got
there.
this right, the enemy will justify that, though, right?
Yes. I don't know if they'll justify that, but
But they'll do it,
I mean, depending.
and you
sure.
just won't do it.
No.
Yeah. So then it seems to me like having women in the military under your command probably wouldn't be a very good idea because they're going to get raped.
I don't know how commanding my soldiers to rape their women would prevent the women in my military from getting
well,
raped.
I'm just explaining to you. I'm not telling you that you're making an immoral decision. You're not, right? What I'm telling you is that under your view, even if you're in command, you still would acknowledge that the enemy is going to rape your soldiers.
Yes, just like I would acknowledge that the
Yeah.
enemy could kill my soldiers.
They're going to kill your soldiers for sure.
Yeah.
But they're also going to rape your female soldiers. Mm-hmm. So do you think they have an advantage if their military is mostly men and yours is co-ed in infantry combat?
Again, I think it would depend on other factors.
How is it they are? I don't understand how we go from Vikings to this. Female Vikings as well. We have female Vikings, men Vikings, and we have females like this. Yeah, great warriors, man. In the past, think about it. You're in 2025. Your ancestors went through tough times, man, for this. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you next one.